aside from the fact that I think sampling to make a beat sounds super dope, and you potentially pay some of these legacy artists and their estates through that process, also it just helps keep the generations connected. What's going down? It's the At Odds podcast with Erinn, Payne, and Dame, brought to you by Two Law. So if you need premium distribution for your beats, for your songs, for whatever, try it out for 3 months free, no obligation. Even if you leave and don't want to continue using the platform, your songs remain on all of the platforms. Go to www.twoloss.com and use the code. Damn, they don't want me to do this promo.
Use the code At Odds, ATODDS. Check it out.
Wait, we got to give them the website, twoloss.com.
Yes, Two Laws. Leave all that in there, Payne. We're human. Things happen. We record videos many times before posting them. We've also been having our weekly Two Lost office hours sessions. They've been really dope. The past Monday was another gem. Jan Sneed came through and talked about Pandora and some of the opportunities on the platform. Pandora is typically overlooked. We're typically like, Spotify, Apple Music. But there's some other opportunities on these smaller DSPs, whether it's Audio Mac or Pandora, that artists need to take advantage of. It's all about building on small wins and getting opportunities or taking advantage of things that other people aren't looking at. So we had Jan Sneed this upcoming week. We got my guy Meg, who's the CEO of Symphony. We're going to talk about marketing your music in 2024. So Monday, that's today if you're listening to this when it just came out. So rock with us. But anyway, how you guys feeling?
Life is good, man. I'm looking forward to your Grammy rant. I know that you really wanted to talk about the Grammys and whose outfits were trash and who didn't deserve a Grammy.
No, well, shout out Killer Mike. My brief commentary on Killer Mike sweeping the rap categories at the Grammys. I think that, because typically rap has been like a younger person's sport, but it's definitely not that anymore. And that's kind of credit to the young people that have shied away from rapping. Like, there are definitely young people that rap very well, but a lot of them are like shying away from the label of being called a rapper. Like, some artists today, even if they rap, they don't even want to be called a rapper. And I think that, Killer Mike's album was dope. And if you listen to it, you can tell that a lot of work was put in to create what he created. However, I think it was also helped by the current narrative of young people not appreciating rap or shying away from the rapper label, because it was easier to kind of celebrate Killer Mike's album in this environment because there's so much critique or criticism of this generation's rappers. So I definitely think that added to the narrative, added to the momentum of his project, added to the conversations around his album. But shout out Killer Mike, even though he got arrested right after, unfortunately. I thought it was dope that he, was able to win. But if you look at the winners of the rap category, like over the past or just the history of the rap category, it's people that rap. Like, it's people that like really, really rap and appreciate the art form of rap. You got your Tyler, the Creators, and your Kendrick Lamar's, even Cardi B. I would put, she may not write all her stuff, but she be rapping her ass off. Because I think Cardi B won one, right? She won a few years ago, something like that. I think she did. Anyway, I thought it was dope.
Yeah, I think Rap Song of the Year or something like that.
Yeah, she won something. So anyway, I thought it was dope. I didn't get to see all the performances. I didn't watch it. But I usually go back and watch some of the performances. And I know that Erinn wanted to talk about the Tracy Chapman performance, which was really dope.
Perfect segue. Yes. So I'd say like the last 4 or 5 years, I just caught the highlights. I don't usually watch it. But I had just landed back in Nashville and my parents happened to be in town and they were going back to Atlanta the next day. So I just put up on their hotel room, like maybe minutes before it started. So I got to watch like the first 30 minutes with my parents, which was dope. And Yeah, the Tracy Chapman surprise, like, cause I hadn't heard it was rumored or anything, but she came on screen and I literally audibly was like, oh my God. And my mom was like, who is that? Cause I got so excited. So today, well, when you're hearing this Monday, the hope is that, so right now what's going on is, one, I just want to shout out Tracy Chapman. I've been a fan of her my whole life, literally. But specifically a fan of Fast Car and the songwriting. I went to an executive retreat this winter, and they asked about your first music memory. And one of my first music memories is, it's not that it was the first song that I heard. It's just like one of my most vivid first memories of hearing Fast Car and then being so like enthralled with Tracy Chapman's voice and then being like, is this a man? Is this a woman? This is a woman. I love her tone, and just like being so obsessed. And it led me to my love of alto women. So anyways, and sometimes tenor women as well. So today, as of today, when we're recording this, I'm on Billboard News right now. Her song has gone up 241% in streaming. So basically it's been rising ever since the Luke Combs song dropped with her, but the individual Fast Car, I'm not talking about, his remake of it, which is dope. Shout out to Luke Combs. I just want to commemorate Tracy Chapman though as the originator, but it's been growing steadily, but raising 241%. It was averaging about 250,000 streams a day. So the next day after the Grammys, and I guess it's continuing this trend, they're saying that it's hitting just under 1 million streams a day right now, which is like so beautiful for her. But what's even more astonishing, which I'm really, really impressed by this, it's up 38,400% in sales, which is basically it's moving 14,000. It moved 14,000 units the day after the Grammys and looks to be on trend to essentially continue uptrending, not plateauing, which is really exciting. And then the same thing, they said the Luke Combs version is up 37% and his sales are up 4,000%, which is amazing. Even after that song being a smash, it being performed on the Grammys is still doing well for him too. So one, I just want to shout out Tracy Chapman. Two, I want to shout out all Black artists who are getting their recompense this month and this year, and people who are really recognizing our contribution to music, especially because in light of what Payne tweeted yesterday that I didn't think was controversial, but most music, dare I say all music, originates from Black people. So apparently that's surprising to people, but I'm just grateful that Luke Combs is paying homage to the originator and very much been honoring Tracy Chapman this entire time, even in the way that he speaks about her and gives her credit. I also want to shout out just Tracy Chapman for being a visionary. She was way ahead of her time, has been super consistent. And it's not like Tracy Chapman just went unknown. For people who know, Tracy Chapman is still on the festival circuit. She plays folk festivals. She still tours, so she's still well known to her audience. But to see her on a massive global stage is just really encouraging for me to see her receive her just due. And Billboard is anticipating that she will enter the top 100 again. The song originally dropped in 1988. So the Luke Combs version dropped 35 years after the original version. So now this year in its 36th year, it may re-enter the Billboard Hot 100, which I think would be absolutely incredible. So yeah, shout out to Tracy Chapman. I think this is beautiful.
And Erinn alluded to it because I think he did it in a very respectful way, even to the point where he didn't even change like the sex of I think it's a checkout girl. Like I think he says like checkout girl in the song.
Yeah, he continued the gendered voice of the narrator.
Yeah, and then I thought the performance was super dope. Like the back and forth. Dude has a dope voice too. I'm not familiar with him. Obviously, he's a big artist. I don't really check for country artists like that. But he's apparently a huge artist. But shout out to him for breathing more life into that song and bringing it to this generation.
Well, here's the thing about that song, right? So this says a lot about the streaming era versus how things used to be. Yeah, because I think I don't appreciate how different music consumption is today versus how it was in the 80s and 90s. One, because, I was a little kid in the 80s and 90s, but also because the shift happened kind of gradually. And I've just been kind of riding the wave and not really focusing on the change, just kind of adapting to it. But Tracy Chapman, Fast Car, is not gold, nor is it platinum. It was not a hit single in that regard. So what would have happened, 20 years ago if this Luke Combs, Tracy Chapman moment on the Grammys went on? People would have rushed to their record collection and just listened to Fast Car on the tape or the CD or the vinyl version of Tracy Chapman's self-titled album, right? So that would not have run up her numbers at all. It wouldn't have increased her Billboard position.
I would argue they would just forgot about it. There's a lot of remakes that happened in our time that I didn't even know it was a remake.
The difference is, and I'm not saying it's good or bad or that the streaming era is better or worse, but I think people also would have, if they didn't have the song, they were more likely back then to just buy the album. If I'm looking at the statistics here, Tracy Chapman's self-titled album on which the song was released is 6 times platinum, but the single is 0 times platinum. So that says something about consumer behavior back then. I think nowadays the album would be 1 time platinum and the song would be 6 times platinum. Because this is kind of the era of gold and platinum flying. And it's great for artists. It's great for producers because then we get more plaques because music is free, So someone, rather than going out and spending $15 on an album, they're just listening to their favorite song 20 times a day. And that runs the numbers up. Because if they do that every day for a month, it's the equivalent in terms of numbers, not money, but it's the equivalent of them having purchased the album like 30 times. And traditionally, you buy an album once, and that's the only metric you add to. And so it's just an interesting comparison. It struck me as we're talking about this. I'm like, I wonder how many times platinum Fast Car is, because in my opinion, it's the greatest song of all time, or at least modern song of all time. And nothing. No platinum. Luke Combs is platinum for his cover, but that's a reflection of, actually his version is 2 times platinum. Tracy's is 0. Very different eras, different audiences, but it feels like people who like the Luke Combs version nowadays are of the current generation. They're not 50-year-old Tracy Chapman fans.
I think the unique thing is, though, Luke Combs, this is not taking away from him. He was already a big country star. He was like an artist on the rise. I am a country fan. I know a few Luke Combs songs, so I'm not saying that he was an up and coming artist. But he's steadily rising. This by far is his biggest hit. It's the song that's lasted the longest on the charts for him, if I'm not mistaken. And he had one other really big breakout single when he first started. And this is on par. That song, I think, did really well for like a year straight. And then it kind of plateaued, but he was following up with singles. But that was just like the song he was known for. I think this song is going to be like what people see Luke Combs as. So even though he added to the momentum, I think it's a testament to a great song because it's his biggest song yet. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not even just like, oh, Luke Combs took it and then blew it up,
Well, on Spotify, at least, he's got 3 songs that are bigger. And I don't know.
Well, I'm talking about like radio, because, with country, it's like radio.
Got you. And Payne, I don't know if I misheard your point or didn't interpret it correctly, because again, like when I was coming up, I'm trying to think of a good example of a remake, but like I for sure didn't go and buy an original song of anything, right? Like streaming gives us an opportunity to tap in and to explore the past in a way that we just never did. I mean, I told the story about my cousin who loves Wu-Tang and he was like 16. I think people are constantly doing that, not only with music, but with, you know, The Office, you know, all these television shows, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, what have you. So I mean, this is where this to me is where streaming is a huge benefit over how we used to consume music in the past. Because, you know, if I heard a remake when I was 14, 15 in my 20s or whatever, I'd probably rocking with the remake. I never went back and like, let me go find this CD that it was originally on. Like that wasn't something that and I know that's just anecdotal to me, but I don't even know anybody else that would be like, okay, let's go run the numbers up on the original.
I was like that, especially during the CD era. If I could figure out, like, I know I didn't come up per se during the record era. Like, I was listening to records, obviously, like with my parents and whatnot. But I would try to find, like, I remember finding out that, like, Kanye was taking a bunch of stuff from Otis Redding, and I was like, I got to get an Otis Redding CD, like, because I wanted to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So I think some people are
definitely
like,
the exception. Like that's not like the norm of what people do. Like if you are a music connoisseur like yourself, then maybe you're digging in the crates for these originals. But that's just not typically what people are rocking with, the remix or the latest. So again, I'm not the Spotify captain, but
well, some people do. I mean, look, this is a thing that I would attribute a lot to beat makers, that, you know, sampling, people are so anti-sampling, which is sampling is connecting a lot of generational threads. I mean, sampling and covers are very close first cousins, in my opinion. So when you remake or make a cover version of a Tracy Chapman song and you introduce Tracy Chapman to a whole generation of people, it's really similar to when you sample something from a previous generation. And that's happening a lot lately. And people get mad at producers, like, man, producers are so damn lazy. You're sampling all this music from the 2000s and late 90s. And it's like, wait a minute, in the 80s, they were sampling the 70s. So what's the difference? I mean, I get that. I'm not speaking on crate digging culture because I love it. I love the obscurity of a lot of these samples, but it doesn't always have to be like that. And it used to not always be like that. It was James Brown. You know what I mean? There's nothing obscure about James Brown. And then the digging itself, the finding obscure records and flipping them, became an art. But what I want to focus on is just the intergenerational dialogue that producers contribute to, you know, because we're doing it all the time. Yeah, every now and then you have a Luke Combs covering Tracy Chapman, but for the most part, that connection is almost exclusively coming from samplers who make specifically hip hop. Yeah, it happens in other genres, but not nearly as much. So aside from the fact that I think sampling to make a beat sounds super dope, and you potentially pay some of these legacy artists and their estates through that process, also it just helps keep the generations connected. Up till very recently, maybe the last decade or so, the different generations, especially in hip hop and just black music in general, they felt really connected. Lately, they don't. So I say shout out to sampling. I will never criticize sampling. I'll speak on the realities of sampling, but I think it's a positive force in music and culture.
All right, well let's get into our first topic. What do we want to talk about? I know that one of the suggestions I sent via Twitter was, do we need gatekeepers back, or should the barriers of entry be higher or even lower?
I think they should be higher, especially after the replies I've been getting to my Black History Month post. But you know, that and the funny thing is, a lot of the replies were from people making music, not just consumers, where it's like, yeah, I know hip hop is probably black music, but what about like, bitch, it's Black History Month. Just shut the fuck up it's the shortest month of the year. Just shut up for the next 28 days. That's it. That's it.
We're not saying shut up because we want you to acquiesce to the thought process because you want us to feel good for Black History Month. We're just saying shut up so we don't have to give you the historical context right now. Just let us rest. Because the thing is, you're wrong. Okay? You're just wrong. So leave me be. Let us be great. You know what I'm saying? Let us enjoy this month. Just shut up.
So I think you guys went into a set. I know that was a topic.
You did. No, I know what you want to talk about. Let's talk about what you want to talk about.
Actually, I'm not sure how the two kind of relate, but you guys can tell me how they do.
Can you turn your volume up, Dave? I need you to drown out me and Erin's interjections, just because I know that we've been deep.
I'm a ride for Black people always. Just know that. Know if there's an inkling of an inch, I'm a ride for us.
Okay, I'll just try to talk louder because I'm not using my mic today.
Oh, that's why. Okay, that was the trick.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how what the topic that I proposed, like how the two relate, if at all, or if you guys were just too excited to talk about Payne's tweet. We can talk about Payne's tweet.
No. Wait. You said gatekeepers, but what you want to talk about is close friends helping musicians.
It's a totally separate. It's a separate topic. So there's your tweet about Black music, right, and how most genres originate from Black culture. There is the conversation around that spurred after Logic's interview of his pops. Let's just talk about that real quick because that could be quick because I think we're all on the same page here. Logic, there was a clip from maybe what is a longer interview that's currently circulating on Twitter. It's him and his pops, and Logic gets critiqued a lot because he's always talking about race and his experience being biracial. He uses the N-word, and I cringe sometimes because I'm a mixed person myself. I've never had a lot of the issues it seems like he had growing up. Like I was pretty confident of like who I am and was, and I don't use the N-word myself. Like all the homies did, and I don't even really know why, to be honest. I just never felt comfortable doing it. That's just not something that I do. If you use it, I don't yell at people for doing it. I understand it. But yeah, Logic doesn't sound right using it though. It don't sound natural to him. Like there's cats that use the word, and I was like, okay, I can understand probably who you grew up around, and I grew up around a lot of Black folks too. I probably would. I think I would sound more natural using it than Logic does if I did use it. It seems forced, and I don't want to go down that path, but it definitely seems forced. It seems a bit weird, and every time he talks about race, even I cringe a bit because I don't think he's representing the mixed folks in the best light at all times. So I understand the criticism that he gets. However,
Dame, who is representing the mixed folks in the best light? I want to give them my support.
J. Cole, I would say J. Cole.
Okay, yeah.
I actually didn't know J. Cole was biracial. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a whole other podcast that I'm happy to be a participant on, but like we need to have a conversation because I just got into not even an argument. There was some cat at the gym that was telling me I wasn't Black. There is a different thing that's happening in today's time with mixed race folks. Like it was when I was coming up, I was Black. My mom told me I was Black. It wasn't even a conversation. And then when like Obama got elected, people in Fox News, Obama getting elected, the erasure of history, like all this like comes together and creates a lot of confusion for people because obviously there's like a logical argument. It's like, oh, your mom's white, your dad's Black, you're both. But that's not exploring the history of this country or even just race as a social construct. But we don't need to go down that path. Let's just talk about Logic. And the reason that we're talking about it is because I think it's super important for all artists to have a network of people or just a community of people that you can bounce ideas off of that kind of prevents you from doing things that maybe you shouldn't be doing, either in the studio or whether it's making a video. Because we know by now, like, how things are going to be responded to, you know, how things are gonna happen on the internet. Like, we know how people are gonna be responded to, the backlash to. And he has this conversation with his pops that I think shouldn't have been had online. But let's get your guys' opinion on.
Shouldn't have been had, period.
Yes.
As a representative for Black women in America, I do have to make a comment. I think part of it is also our contribution to the conversation, more so in the last like 20 years. A lot of the biracial like delineation has come because we have felt erased, like the erasure of our necessity to culture and our voice. So a lot of times you'll have biracial or even just lighter skinned people being able to experience the benefits of Blackness, but not necessarily all of the quote unquote pitfalls due to racism, again, social constructs. So then because of race and the construct, it pits biracial people against Black people, are like full Black people, which I think is a super weird thing. But it's like, because people aren't having the conversation. I also think that white passing versus racially ambiguous versus, like, even with the J. Cole thing, I didn't know he was biracial. J. Cole versus Logic. J. Cole doesn't bother me saying nigga. Logic very much so does. So then you're getting into, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have biracial nieces, and like, we've had the conversation, like my brother says the N-word. My nieces will never. And I will have a problem with him and their mother if they do, because them little girls, when I'm out with them, people think I'm the nanny. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it is what it is. So I just think that there has to be a respect. Like that's why this conversation that Dame is talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like both of y'all as biracial men, I know, can lend to this conversation. And I feel like I always feel very respected I don't feel, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that respect is the approach to everything. And I just think that my generation feels that we have access to everything that we can see. Just because we can see it, it's now ours. And I think that is super wrong. I grew up in the South with Black parents who were like, just because you can see it doesn't mean it's yours, in a lot of ways. Sometimes that creates a limiting belief, and sometimes that creates a healthy boundary. So I don't want to go into race, because I know y'all gonna try to eat me up in the comments, and I am not the one, because listen, I can go toe for toe with you and I don't need to. I'm not confused about my history, the history of this country, and the history of race. So if you are, please go study it. I don't want to talk about that. I just do think that when Logic appears anywhere in my timeline, I don't like him as a person. This has nothing to do, and hear me out, respect to him as a human, but as a person, he doesn't care about anything but his own opinion, and that's evident. So lending to Dame's perspective on this, and lending to Dame bringing up the topic, Logic is calling his father an N-word during Black History Month as promo, to then say that he's releasing records with his father because his father is a crackhead that he doesn't want to give money to. Now let him tell it. It's a beautiful story of how he's giving his father royalties instead of direct money. I don't care how you spin this. At its core, it's Black History Month, and this racially ambiguous, I'm being generous in saying that, but it looks like a white man is calling a Black man an N-word during Black History Month, and then saying that he's a bum because he's asked him for money before, and this is how he's going to give him money. I don't care what month it is. Disrespecting your parents is super corny. Like, it's super corny. I've had my fair share of rough situations with my parents, especially my father, but I'm not getting on a public platform with him and calling him out of his name. The only reason Logic can do that is because Logic has money and his father is in a place of need. But had the shoe been on the other foot, that's crazy to me. So that's my first issue. Outside of music, don't do that. Like, bro, if you got an issue with your dad, don't put that joint on camera. Like, we hear it in your music all the time. That's respect. You're an artist. Cool. But you bringing that to the internet during Black History Month, this is why I feel like he doesn't, I can't say he's one of us. I can't say he's mine, because that type of experience, that type of context clearly is lost on him, that he would do that during Black History Month. That he, not just the month, because months, all this shit is made up, but that he would do this publicly and then try to make it seem like he's being beneficial and charitable. He's just weird. Logic, this shit is weird. You need some Black women in your life. You need some friends in your life. This shit is just weird. Why would you do this? I don't care if your dad's a crackhead. I don't care if he's asked you for $1 million. I'm not discounting the pain that that's brought you. But if this is how you're getting your shit off, please go to therapy and then go back and then go back and then go to EMDR, get on some medication. But this is not fixing anything. It's just making people upset. I can't see nobody who has a sound mind. What you were advocating for just 3-4 years ago, advocating for sound mental states. I can't see anybody with a sound mind getting behind this and being like, yeah, Logic just said all this disrespectful stuff to his dad, but he's trying to support him, so they're recording music together. It seems like a really weird marketing ploy rooted in the whiteness that he's trying to evade. And I'm saying that because the patriarchal mindset of let me tear you down to give you a cookie when you really need some sustainable help. That's to me what all of this, the whole racial construct, the whole BS in America, it's like, we don't F with you, but here's a cookie. I hope you're grateful for it. Like, that shit is crazy to me. Like, this is like steeped in racism, and I don't think he realizes it. And it's really disrespectful just from a parental to child relationship. There's just a lot of things. I didn't even watch the whole video because I got so annoyed within the first 45 seconds. Like, I'm sure Dame will retweet it or somebody, maybe you have to just go Google it, but I haven't even seen the whole thing. Logic, you need friends. You need somebody who cares about you to say this shit is weird. If there's nobody in your corner who tried to stop you, I'm sorry, because you need people who love you. If people tried to stop you, get over yourself and listen, because this shit is very weird.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I definitely wanted to talk about it, not to just continue to pounce on Logic. But the thing is, as artists travel on their journey, whether it's you're not having any success and you start to get a little bit more desperate, or maybe you've had a lot of success and that success is waning and you're trying to get it back. And then you start doing things, or maybe this is just genuinely what he wanted to do. Maybe he had people saying, hey, this is, probably not the best look. But just in general, for people that are watching this, you should have some solid people in your corner. You should have just kind of people that give you advice. And when you start to get desperate, or maybe you start to, you want a little bit more attention, you want more success, and you might color outside the lines in a way that might have some very bad long-term effects, or maybe even immediate effect. You're not quite thinking clearly because you're thinking about the streams and the likes and the clicks and things. You should have some people in your corner that they can bring you back and be like, hey, this isn't a good look for your brand. This isn't a good look for you as a man or a woman. This isn't a good look for your family. Like, to have those tough conversations is so important, to have those people in your corner, because I do understand how you might stray away from, stray away from maybe your normal self. In this environment, you get caught up in things that, maybe don't matter, and you might stray, and you need those people to bring you back. So hopefully you have those people.
I will say this too about critique. When you're an artist, if something rubs you the wrong way, the first thing that you shouldn't do is reject it. I learned this in a leadership course when I was very young. They said if something bothers you, the first thing you should do is hold it. You don't have to hold it for a long time, but hold it and be like, why does this bother me? Is it because it's untruthful and it's a complete disregard for my humanity or whatever? Is it because there is some truth here and there could be some improvement? Is it because I'm being misread? Like, just hold it for a second. Don't immediately, nah. And that's what I feel like. I'm such a big proponent for therapy, because a lot of times when you hear something that you don't like, you experience it as immediate rejection. But a lot of times, if you have people around you who care about you, that correction is way more loving than just agreeing with you. I don't love you if I'm agreeing with everything that you do. If all your friends and the people around you are just an echo chamber to support what you're doing, then you don't have a strong community. Like, I get called out regularly. That's how I know I'm loved. Small stuff that I don't feel like is like, or I feel like I've grown past something and I think I'm trucking along, and then my people are like, yo, you tripping. Or like, hey, just real quick, reconsider that. That doesn't mean I have to embody their full belief system. But I can take into consideration, like, hey, maybe I should think about this. This may not be my exact value system, but maybe I need to consider the thought process here and reevaluate where I stand. So, like, everybody and anybody should be challenged regularly, especially by the people around you. If you're an artist and you're not being challenged regularly, or you're pushing everybody away who challenges you, even if they don't do it perfectly, that's a critique I used to get all the time. So I tried to figure out how to say it perfectly, how to be the nicest, hey, get over yourself. We're human. I'm not going to say it perfectly every time. My intention is not to harm you. Look at my intentions. My intention is to help you. If you take everything that I say as disrespect, your ego is way too big for you to really grow. Again, come back to me later and be like, man, I heard what you had to say. Honestly, I wish you would have said it differently. It hurt my feelings, yada, yada, yada. But like, I think people got to grow up. You gotta be willing to say, like, man, they could have said that crazy, but there's some truth there. I need to grow. And if you have a good relationship, go back to them and be like, yeah, I don't like how you said it, but thank you. You know what I'm saying? But folks need people around them. Like, you don't get better if you don't have sandpaper around you. You don't get better if you don't go through the fire of refinement. That shit don't feel good. If you're looking for greatness, you know what I'm saying? Like, greatness requires a lot of pain, a lot of duress, a lot of stretching and pulling. Like, you got to be willing to go through that. And if you're just looking for the smooth path now, you'll never go higher than what you can see.
Yeah. And I mean, as a person who just can't get a freaking break with the people even present company, like I know if I have a bad idea, Dame is not going to let that shit slide. And then just the way my family raised me, the way my sisters are, the way my friends are, like I thought they were cool. I was playing some new samples that I was making to my best friend Memory, and he's like, yeah, man, you gotta stop. He's telling me to hit pause. He's like, man, you need better sound design. What the fuck are you doing? It's like, oh God. But it was helpful criticism. And I know when I play something for him, he's going to be unfiltered and a little raw with what he says. I think the problem that a lot of us have with, I don't even want to say constructive feedback, but if the intention is good and someone's giving us feedback, and like, I'll speak as a producer, if someone's giving me feedback on my beat, it's hard for me to take that feedback if they're not using my language. So case in point, I had an idea that I liked, but I wanted to ask a close friend of mine who I consider a sister if she would listen to it and give me feedback, because she doesn't make music. So that kind of feedback is important, because I'm not making music for musicians necessarily. I'm making it for people to consume, people who dance, people who go to clubs. And she's like, yeah, it needs to be faster here. I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Like, beats don't just suddenly get faster. And then, so I'm trying to talk it through her. She's like, no, you're being sensitive. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to, she goes, no, you're in your feelings. I can tell you're in your feelings. Forget it. I'm like, no, I really want your feedback. We need to break down this wall, because we're speaking entirely different languages. And eventually she was like, no, okay, well, think about this song. And she, it was a Yo Gotti song. She's like, use this as a reference. So I'm like, great. look up the instrumental, because what you think you're hearing, you're not hearing. That's the trick. And then once we got to that point, she's like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then the language that we were using to communicate became clearer, because I was understanding what she was saying. She was understanding, the elements of the song. And then she's like, oh yeah, all it took was just to remove the kick right there in the high. I'm like, okay, cool. That's super helpful. I'm going to do that. How does that sound? That sounds great. So there's the constructive criticism, but then there are like the things where like, hey, I'm going to make a YouTube video talking about Kanye or Hit Boy or some other amazing producer, and I'm just going to shit all over them because I'm feeling like this is my way to success. And I share that with a friend. That friend better, or one of you, I know you'll tell me not to make that video. I think that's two different types of feedback, right? One is music based, the other is just decisions.
I don't think the goal is to just listen to everybody and anybody, right? You develop this network of people. I'm blessed to know a lot of great people. That's one of the things I'm super grateful about. But there's people I go to for certain things. Like they don't, like the people that are not in music in my life, like they're not going to be able to give me that much advice when it comes to the music industry, right? That's why you build this network of people, and hopefully you build trust over time with certain people, but it's all rooted in just honesty. You need people around you that will speak honestly. And even if you decide to do what it is you were going to do, hopefully they at least made you stop for a second and think about it. Just give it a little bit more thought, like look at it from a different angle. And if you still decide that it's the best thing for you, then maybe it is. I'm not saying that your team is going to know the right thing 100% of the time, but I think it will help you just slow down and have a different thought process. And you might come to a different conclusion and you might not, but we all need those people around us that course correct us at times, because if we're traveling alone, we're typically going to make a lot more mistakes than if we didn't have that sounding board of people that are willing to just give us that raw honesty.
And then sometimes too, it's like, I experience this a lot of times with artists. It's like, I would, I'm like, yo, have you thought about that? Or like, well, tell me what you're thinking about that. And then they go do the thing and then it backfires. And they're kind of like, well, I wish I would have known. It's like, I asked you questions, but you so up here with it. You didn't even consider that I was trying to be considerate of you. And cause I know you would have got pissed if I would have been like, don't do that. So I just asked you some questions. And, I feel like Dame is great at that. Dave did it last night. He was like, this and this and this. He check in like, what's up with this? You know what I'm saying? I don't take offense to it, because it's like, sometimes it's like, what is your thought process here? It's not a matter of, I think you're wrong. It's, this doesn't make sense to me. Tell me why it makes sense to you. And I think that's what, going back to my point with Logic, it's like, where did you go wrong, yo? And this is not me coming for bro specifically off of this, is that this dude has a trend to me of disrespecting people. And I feel like it always ends up on Black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like his point of disrespect always settles firmly where I feel disrespected in my culture, that he seems to so appreciate that he feels entitled to, but never respects properly, in my opinion.
It backfires because it seems like he wants to be more accepted by Black culture, but he does the opposite. Like,
yeah. But we want you, bro. Be you. Like, we want you as you, but you trying to pull parts from this and be like, why don't y'all ride with me like this and this? It's like, man, I think to me, the thing that I love the most about Black culture is that we really appreciate people when they're themselves. I don't care where you come from. When you yourself, Black folks be like, okay, I see you. What's up? You doing your thing. But it's like, this dude, again, and I'm sure he spent a lot of time in therapy. I'm not coming for his mental health like that. I'm just saying, like, you need to continue to go to therapy and work out them wounds that you have, because you're bleeding on the internet. And I feel like, respectfully, I think you need some women in your life that can nurture you in a way that you're like willing to hear hard things from them. Because this to me feels like he's not getting enough like hard truth from that direction. He probably gets a lot of hard truth in his life, but from that direction. And that's what my point was popping back in here, is like, you have to listen for more than just hard stops. You know what I'm saying? Like, when people start asking me questions, I'm like, okay, like my business partner, Brandon, he's not going to ever confront me like hard, but he'll start asking me questions. I have to be astute enough to be like, he has reservations here. Let me stop and pause. Let me be mature enough to be like, let's pause here and think about this. And a lot of times it's not even that he wants me to do a 180. It's that there's some middle ground that we could cover. Instead of saying this is it, it's like, we just need you to take a few more steps. I think what he was trying to do was probably rooted in some cool shit. Like, I can't keep giving my dad money. My dad probably been in and out of therapy. He's still off the rock. I don't know this man's history, so I don't want to disrespect him, but I got drug addicts in my family, and I understand how hard that battle is. So I'm not even discounting what bro has gone through. I'm just saying, like, rethink your approach. Like, if you want to give your dad something good, don't give him a plate of shit with a cherry on top. Give him something good then. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that, like, to me, it hurt because it's evident that Logic is hurting. It's so evident that he's hurting. And like, this was him trying to solve that pain, but like, he couldn't even get past the pain enough to actually do the deed. He was just hurting. And like, so I'm just like, he need people around him to embrace him and to nurture him. But that's like artists. I think a lot of times, I won't even just say artists. I think a lot of times creatives, sometimes even like really bright executives, you're just on, you know, dang, we was on that one podcast and homie was going in. He's my homie, but like he's an executive who's doing so well. He's just like a missile. So it's like he's misguided in a lot of ways, but because he's having so much success, he's not even able to see, like, you know, and that's just life. Like, you got to go through the refining process. But I just want to bring it around for me is like, just like, listen, like, there's so much feedback coming. Like my mom says, God is always talking. We just may not be listening. Like, there's so much feedback coming. You could get better even if nobody directly corrects you, if you want to get better. The first person you ever have to ever be accountable to is yourself. And if you're accountable to yourself, you'll accept accountability, whether it's from a stranger or from a, you know, like I was going through some really rough shit last year and people had a lot to say about me. And it's like, you have no context for my life. So I'm not taking that to heart, but like, I'm listening to see, like, is there something here that I can improve? After a while, I had to shut it off because I'm like, nah, folks are just trying to hate on me at this point. But you got to be able to take just even morsels from places to improve, because that's the only way that you'll get better.
Yeah.